we will allow time for questions throughout the presentation. So as soon as we get started, I'll go into those details. And we'll be getting started here in just a moment. Good morning. Hope you're all doing well today. My name is Jennifer Wegeman, and I'm going to be your host today on the WorkNet DuPage Job Club. I'm going to go ahead and start the recording so that we can record this. And we're live. So today is Friday, July 31st, 2020. And we've got a great speaker today, Louisa Buehler, and she's going to be speaking about the topic of hurry up and wait. So I'll let her explain a little bit more about that topic in just a minute. But I want to welcome all of you to the Job Club. We are hosting this every week. And while the office is closed, we've been having a lot of great topics, and we will record this and it will be posted on our website. And I'll give you details where you can find it later. So today, Jim is off for the weekend. Good for him. So he left us in charge. So watch out. We'll see what happens today. Siobhan Morse is here as my co-host. Welcome.
Hello.
And I'm going to be hosting today, and we'll have some more information about how you can reach us later if you have any questions or comments. We're also going to be sending out a survey later, so I encourage you to fill that out. We've been getting some great comments over the past couple weeks about topics, and we do read your comments, so we appreciate any feedback, ideas, comments that can make this better every week. So part of what we offer at WorkNet DuPage is, for those of you who have never worked with us before, we may have some clients online here. So welcome to you. You're already working with us, but if you're interested in having us help you, we have something called the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act that's authorized by Congress. It's a federal program, and it's a grant that's open to anybody who applies. You have to be eligible, and so that's why we encourage everyone to apply, because everyone's situation is a little different. But today, one of the things that we offer, our job search skills training, and the virtual job club is part of that piece of the WIOA grant. It's open to the public. We also have workshops for clients that are, again, you have to be eligible and you have to apply. So I'll show you how to do that in just a second. But we, encourage you, if you have any assistance you need with your job search, that you get involved with us, because we will make your job easier. Our goal and your goal is the same. We want you to get full-time employment, and we can help you do that. We also have, again, if you're eligible and it makes sense for where you are in your career path, there's training grants available for all kinds of different certifications. It could be CDL driver, it could be a CNA, certified nursing assistant. There could be a specific piece of training that you need for your career and that it's missing in your job search. You're finding that that is making it more difficult for you to be a viable candidate. So again, that's why we want you to go ahead and apply, so we can help you evaluate what is the next best step for you, and hopefully we could assist you in training grants. Now, every Tuesday, we do have a layoff to launch workshop, and I'll show you a slide about that. But if you would like to, get involved with our program, just go to our WorkNetDuPage.org website, and in the upper right corner, it says Get Started. And that's all you have to do, is fill out a short questionnaire, and you'll be contacted by our navigators. And they will, again, find out what you're looking for, what you're interested in, and send you an application. Once you fill out that application, it's reviewed by our managers to decide what the best track for you is in our program, what would be the most helpful for your job search at this time. So if you've just been laid off, or you're, furloughed, or you're not sure what's going on and how maybe we can help you, you can also attend the From Layoff to Launch workshop, and you can take back some control on your career by learning what's available to you. There are representatives there that can describe more detail about the grant and how it works with the unemployment benefits. There's no need to pay back these grants because, they're from the federal government. They're part of a program that's been in place for quite some time. And so this is a program that's available to everyone. So join us on Tuesdays. You can go to worknetdupage.org/launch to learn more. So today we're going to be on Zoom, and as you know, we've got different options here. Right now, everybody is muted. We do not have a way to allow people to talk with this larger group. So we've got this recording, and if you have a specific question for a panelist, myself, Siobhan, or Louisa, you can always, a technical issue, anything like that, you can put it in the chat. If you have a question for the speaker regarding her topic, go ahead and put it in the Q&A. And we will stop throughout the presentation and make sure that your questions are answered. So a little Zoom etiquette, obviously, you're not going to have much chance to say anything today with our format in a webinar format, but we want everybody to have a great experience. And so these are just some good tips for any Zoom events that you attend. And then if you're attending any networking, virtual networking, these are just some good tips to remember. And again, this will be recorded and put on our website. If you have a chance, take a look at all the topics we've had over the past several weeks. Actually several months. We've got a lot of great topics, so go ahead and take a look at those. worknetdupage.org/webinars. So at this time, I'm going to introduce Louisa. She and I have met many years ago. I don't remember exactly when it was, Louisa, but she's the owner of Hire Solution Employment Corporation and is really passionate about changing people's lives through gainful employment. Her motto is, "Good people make companies great." She's in her 18th year of business, and she feels blessed and grateful to have survived the recession and to be coping with the new normal to continue helping companies find their best people. She is a popular speaker at women's clubs, network groups, and events, using these opportunities to help women hone their interviewing and networking skills. And while she is very active in her business and her community, she finds time to write the Grace Marsden Mystery Series. And her published series is available in bookstores and online in both print and ebook. So I want to welcome Louisa, and I will go ahead and stop sharing my screen. And I will turn it over to you, Louisa.
Okay, I think I'm here.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, Jennifer, for inviting me to join your program. Good morning, everyone. It is my pleasure to be with you today. And as Jennifer said, we've known each other for a number of years, and I'm just so very honored that she thought to ask me to share what we're seeing now in our company, working with clients and working with applicants. I'd like to take a moment to explain the title. Hurry Up and Wait. I didn't choose it to be clever or whimsical. The whole idea, the sentiment behind Hurry Up and Wait is what we've been experiencing since the state cleared the way to reopen non-essential businesses. While we worked from home, as many of our clients did, no one had timelines or deadlines. Everything was too uncertain. But in the late days of May, before non-essential businesses could open, clients began asking for immediate interviews. sometimes before they had a protocol in place for the interview process. You know, would they phone screen, Skype, Zoom, and then have an in-person meeting? Well, that was the first hurry up and wait. Some of the interviews that we had scheduled had to be rescheduled because companies, HR people, managers weren't sure how they wanted to take that initial first step. Sometimes we had offers in some cases. They were made to people to start as soon as possible. And then we experienced the second hurry up and wait because clients who had opened immediately didn't have enough safety protocols in place. They realized that they weren't in compliance with the guidelines and they needed to do that before they can bring new staff in. So I don't think we need to have a show of hands to know that this scenario may have played out for some of you in the audience. It's happened to many people and to many companies, and that's what I wanted to address today. I'm told that Jennifer is the keeper of the questions, and so she will let me know when we gather a few and it's time to perhaps stop and address some of them. I'm having a little technical difficulty here, and I don't know why. Please bear with me. Okay, there we go. So sorry. You can read this for yourselves. It's just something to let you know how confusing it's been for companies that aren't sure how to put protocols in place. Now, this confusion has caused commitments to hire to be delayed and some even rescinded. We have had companies that are stationed in Illinois, but their corporate is in another state. One anecdotal story is a company that is in Elmhurst. They interviewed several people, got it down to one person. They were excited to have him come back a second time to interview with the team. And then their corporate office in Texas had different protocols for hiring because of what was happening in Texas with their spike in the virus. So this company in Elmhurst that was not experiencing the same situation, they were told to put the hiring on hold. So hiring at that company was frozen, and the young man who had waited patiently for almost a month to get a start date was told that they had no idea when they would be able to open up hiring. So this is a case of the delay and problems that happen when the companies are not in tune with the requirements and the guidelines. We have another company that they put their hiring on hold and they were going to bring their office back slowly at July. And in the beginning of July, they said they would push it, their hiring, to late July. And then late July became mid-August, and now it is the end of August. What's happening there is that the company, GM, is waiting to find out how people come back and if everything is safe. This company has 40 people in their call center. They're bringing people back 10 at a time to work in pod areas that they've created with safety shields. The thinking is every 2 weeks, they'll bring 10 people back. And after everyone is there, they'll see if anything, if everyone is safe. If someone in the first pod becomes infected, then those 10 people go home, but they still have other people that have not been exposed to them. It's an unusual way to open, but they have found through their, not just HR department, but through their OSHA representatives, that this is the best way to ensure large groups coming back are coming back safely. So this is something that I had never heard of before because we've never been in this before. But the metrics are changing and people have to be aware of that. Companies want to hire you as much as you want to get hired, but they are not sure of what that process should be. As these strategies become clear, the other half of the equation is to make sure that employees are comfortable about their health and the future of their work. I want to stress this line. If you are uncomfortable with pursuing in-person interviews during an uncertain reentry, you are not alone. It's probably a very healthy concern to have. There is a conflict of emotions between needing to have that employment and fear of getting employed. We had a company that did everything, well, I guess in my opinion, they did everything a little bit too helter-skelter. They wanted to interview people in person. They wanted people to start immediately. They brought people back in. They didn't have protocols in place as far as plexiglass shields or even sanitizing stations. And so they decided that they would hire someone. And what ended up happening is that the person they hired was a little bit concerned about their safety. They put the job on hold until they could revamp some of what they had to do. They realized what a big job it was to move desks, to change work patterns. And at that point, they decided to put the job on hold until they could come up with a better plan. During that time, the young woman that they hired, someone in her family tested positive. So she had to self-quarantine and then test to make sure that she was clear. At that point, they rehired her after putting the job on hold. But after going through that scare, she declined the position, even though she was desperate to work, because she had 2 children, minor children at home, and her concern was that she still wasn't comfortable, and that was her concern, that she would become infected and bring that home to her family. So it's a real concern for people, and it's not something that you are alone in feeling, and you shouldn't feel that you have to push down or tamp down that fear because you want to be employed. When we get orders from companies, we ask them what protocols they want us to share with candidates. What are they doing that we should tell our candidate? And what do they expect from the candidate if they're hired? Don't feel you can't ask about what procedures they have in place. It's absolutely perfectly acceptable. And if a company doesn't have procedures in place that make you feel comfortable, then that isn't the place for you. This is what a lot of people are finding out. It's not just companies that are putting hiring on hold. There are applicants that are deciding to wait a little bit longer. Some of them are waiting now because their children are going to be doing remote learning. This is all part of the new normal that's taking place. So it's not an easy answer to either side, to hiring or to accepting. Another step, as you can read, is the company is unsure. Who's returning? Who wants to stay remote? Can some of the positions that they've previously filled in the office, can they be filled by technology? So employers are not certain. They're not certain about their hiring needs until people are back in whatever roles evolve, and until this curve moves in the right direction. There are only 1 or 2 reasons for not returning to work that fall under the CARES Act. People have to be aware of what those reasons are and what they can claim as a legitimate reason for being home and not losing employment. Some people might abandon their jobs, and therefore the company needs to refill those positions. Other companies may not replace them if they decide not to come back after being furloughed. That's what's up in the air. Companies aren't sure exactly who's coming back and in what capacity. The metrics of this pandemic are ever changing. And I heard the news last night that Illinois had 1,800 new cases in one day. That is the most they've had since May 24th. That metric alone will slow hiring and it will slow applications. When I first accepted the offer to speak with you today, back in, I don't even know when it was, I think it was May, I told Jennifer, I have an idea of what might be helpful, but it will be ever changing. I'm not sure if what I put together even 2 weeks before I make the presentation will still be viable. And this case, with having 1,800 new cases, is exactly what I was talking about. Companies feel confident in adding staff if the numbers keep going down. The last thing a company wants to do is hire new people to find out in 2 weeks there's going to be some sort of a partial shutdown again because the curve is moving up rather than down. Many of the leaders are evaluating the way their workforce will be managed. So HR has been very prominent and important in figuring out solutions through technology and through revamping the physical footprint of the office. A lot of companies are working with this process and making it part of their return to work response plan. What's happening, what we see happening, is that a lot of HR people are losing jobs. Part of what's happening is that companies are realizing, because of the boost in technology and the ability of so many of their employees that thought they couldn't realize they could work from home, they are cutting some higher paying positions, mid-level management positions, because they realize now that they don't necessarily need a person locally in each of their locations. This can be handled regionally or even nationally from one corporate office. Walmart has had in-house HR people in their multiple locations. And I found out through an applicant that we have, and luckily just were able to find her a position, they phased out their their local HR people, and a regional HR person will be handling what they were doing. So whatever their duties were, majority of them, all the paperwork, everything that needed to be handled will be done at a regional level. And some of the people-specific duties will be handled by managers of the individual departments within the store. One of the things that companies are realizing, and one of the things that has been pushed forward as a safety measure, is no-touch compliance. So if paperwork and testing and applications and if everything can be done on a portal online, this is the way they're going. In our own process here, we don't do any in-person interviewing. Everything is done online. Our applications, paperwork, everything is online. And so many companies are moving to that, not just in some areas of their company, but in almost all areas, because they found technology that will enable them to do that. And also, if companies cannot make more money, they need to spend less money. And that's another reason why companies are looking to see who can be replaced by either a regional entity or who can be replaced by some technology. Everything impacts the bottom line, and for some companies to be able to stay in business, if they weren't able to get money from the government, this is what they have to do. If you can't make money, you have to spend less. Months of shutdown has shown companies that they can do more than they thought with less. So on the one hand, it's been remarkable how technology and people have stepped up to do things that they didn't think they can do. But it is going to affect how the workforce, returns to companies. One of the things that companies have tried doing during the pandemic, during the shutdown, I should say, is offering different ways for their workforce to be productive. So the challenge will be to adjust your mindset to a new work experience. Some of the ways that companies have handled their workforce in the past are ways that might be coming and might stay. A lot of times companies can't. Telecommuting is pretty obvious. Telecommuting really involves the use of computers and telecommunications to work from wherever you are, and people have been doing that. But some of the other things that may happen when people come back to work have not been used on the whole very much. But I've been hearing that these are things that are going to be coming back and coming to the forefront. Flex time. That's, they set a core number of hours that the employee must work each week, and then the employee can pick their arrival and departure times. These times can change from week to week or month to month, so it's very flexible for the employee, but it's also a way to stagger the workforce when they're back. A compressed work week. Some companies have had that in place for a long time, but I think more are going to be going to that because they can set 4 10-hour days, and the day that is not worked by one person will be picked up by someone else. And so again, it's staggering hours, it's staggering the workforce. Part-time work or reduced hours, that's pretty standard. That's been happening for a long time. But it might be something that applicants are looking for, especially if they have children at home that require remote learning. It could be something that applicants are looking for if they have elderly parents living with them. There is so much that is on both sides of the equation. It's not just the employers setting all of this, it's applicants trying to find that work-life balance. I know that's an overused term, but in this case, in these times, it really is more important than ever to be able to handle everything that has impacted all of us because of the pandemic. And then the last piece that people are talking about is job sharing. And that's one full-time role, and that's split between 2 people. The problem with job sharing is the logistics. That is probably the most difficult one to handle seamlessly, because on paper it looks good. This person will work these times and do this part of it, and this person will pick up these hours. The problem is when there is no time to either overlap the experiences that they've had. They must make sure that the communication between the 2 people is spot on. So you need to always be including the other person on what's happening. We've tried it here. I mean, we're doing it here. We have one person that works from 9 to 2:30, and we have another person that comes in and works from 12:30 to 4:30. The challenge is to make sure that each of them communicate in real time to let the other person know what's happening with applicants that have called in, companies that have called in, what's the status of the job order, of the interviews, so that we don't miss anything. And sometimes, even though they have 2 hours that they're both in the office at the same time, things happen. You're on a phone call, you're talking, you're talking to an employer. You don't get that opportunity to explain all the little details that are just normal happenstance when everyone's in the office at the same time. But these are the processes. These are some of the work thoughts that companies have about bringing people back, trying to cut expenses, but trying to also accommodate guidelines to keep everyone safe. You know, what used to be standard, you had a direct hire, you had a temp to hire, you worked temporary. I mean, it was pretty much either it was a part-time permanent job or it was a full-time permanent job, or it was a part-time temp to hire job or a full-time temp to hire job. It wasn't very complicated. But going forward, everything will be a little bit more complicated because there are too many moving parts that have to be addressed, and they have to keep being addressed as the climate changes. So a perspective from a staffing company in real time. Uncertain. All I can say is this is not a market for inflexibility for employers or job seekers. Now, I've shared this information. Some of the information that I've shared with you has come from contacts that know much more than I do. Midwest HR, Dr. Julia DeGangi, and SHRM. I've shared some anecdotal stories during the last month. No one of us has a crystal ball or an inside track because the times are just too uncertain. That crystal clouds, the track derails, and it almost feels that we're moving backwards instead of forwards. The people that we see getting interviews and getting offers are those that can adapt. It's an area of concern for employers. It's an area of concern for job seekers. The only thing that we see, as I said, is that those people that can adapt to maybe sharing a job, part-time hours when they really wanted full-time, perhaps trying to cobble 2 jobs together, although I know a lot of people that I interview are already doing that. On the employer's side, they're looking for flexibility in perhaps some people that would be willing to work a hybrid position. Sometimes it's remotely from home. Other times you need to be in the office. These are the employers and the applicants that are having the most success. The individuals who want what they want and they can't be flexible, and it could be they can't be flexible because they need to have so many hours or a certain pay level. Employers that cannot be flexible, cannot back off a little bit and say, okay, you know, work 3 days from home, 2 days in, or some sort of a schedule that will help the applicant who may have children at home that now are remote learning. So it's, I guess the takeaway that I would suggest is that, again, this is not a market for inflexibility. And that would be, and I don't know what that picture looks like, but it's going to be fluid. It cannot be a static opportunity any longer. So I know this is a shorter presentation because I talk fast, but I would turn this over to Jennifer. If there are some questions, I'm happy to answer what I can, or perhaps direct you to some information that would work.
Great, Louisa. Thank you so much. I know it is a fluid situation, and I know we're all trying to understand different situations for job seekers, different situations for employers. And I thought this was great that you shared the perspective from the employers, because we work mainly with job seekers. We have a department that works with employers. But when we're on the front lines with the job seekers, you know, they're frustrated, they're not hearing back. That was going on obviously way before the pandemic, but now it is much more, like you said, more anxiety producing because people really need jobs and they're finding they're getting some bites, but then things are stretching out. So I think you gave a lot of good perspective and background to what is going on. And at this time, does anyone have questions? If you want to go ahead and type them in. Okay, I've got one here. Louisa, if you want to address this, how do you share in your resume that needs to be bot friendly or ATS friendly that you are flexible and can adapt?
Well, probably the easiest way to do that is in the summary. If you can, right at the top of your resume, indicate, usually that's a spot where someone can indicate their accomplishments or their skills, a summary of who they are and how they work. That would be a good place to include that you are flexible, and we don't have to couch it in fancy language, that you are flexible as to a work schedule that is beneficial for the employer as well as for yourself. um, I think that pretty much says it all, that um, your your work frame is flexible, and you would welcome an opportunity to to talk about it, or to find out what their needs are. I mean, it employers are always looking to see how it's going to benefit them. So when someone can indicate immediately that they're flexible, they're interested in being able to fit into an employer's new norm work schedule, this gives the employer a better feeling about perhaps contacting that person, because they do see what's in it for them. I hope that helps.
Hey, and I think you raised the question too, Louisa, in your presentation about being adaptable and having perhaps a family situation or even caregiving for elder adults. I know some of my job seekers have that situation and they're concerned they don't want to bring the virus back into the home. So there's many different situations that people have. And I think the laws that we have are for equal employment, but how do you disclose? I guess that's just a question that popped up in my mind. How do you disclose that, yes, you're flexible, but that you may have, different conditions at your residence that you may want, without disclosing that, I've got 20 kids at home, or, whatever your situation is.
God bless.
Yeah, I know I'm exaggerating, but
yeah, I know.
There's some of that where, how much can you really disclose without giving too much information away?
Well, you want to keep the information that you give. You want to let them know you're malleable. You could work with them. You're willing to work with them. You want to fit into what they need, to what their schedule is. You want to get the interview. You want to get the call. Once you are engaged with that employer in an interview, whether it's a Zoom, a Skype, or just a phone interview, find out what they mean. I mean, they may have a work schedule that actually works for you, and you don't need to bring in any of your personal information. If it's a work schedule that doesn't necessarily work for you, but you think with maybe a little bit of tweaking it could, then you can ask that. You can ask if they would consider 3 days home and 2 days on, if those 2 days that are on are maybe 9-hour days, or something. There's always, once an employer opens the door to a different type of work schedule other than 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, got to be here, that's it. They are also looking for someone who can be flexible to them, but they understand, at least the employers that are being successful in hiring, they understand that they have to change a little bit themselves. So once you have the conversation, first of all, don't give away too much until you're talking to them, because what they have to offer may fit, and then you don't have to give them any personal information. If it doesn't fit, then you can try to suggest what could work a little bit better for you if they have that flexibility. Those are always good talking points, and you don't necessarily want to limit yourself by saying, by typing in your summary that you need to have. As soon as you need to have, if it doesn't fit what the employer is offering, they just move on to the next resume. But if you phrase it the way we talked about before, you have a better chance of getting the phone call, and then you can, then you can take it from there. My daughter-in-law just accepted a position because the company she was working for is an indoor trampoline park, and you can imagine they're not going to open until there's a vaccine. You can't have children experiencing social distancing when they're jumping around on a trampoline. So she has accepted another position. She's job sharing with someone else. That woman needs morning hours, and my daughter-in-law needs evening hours. So it worked out beautifully for them, and for the client, the company. They're happy to have both of them sharing this job and covering the hours that they need. So sometimes it can work easily. Other times you have to ask for some little bit of accommodation.
Sure. No, that's great. And I think you have to know where you are in the job search process. And I think sometimes people, because they're spinning multiple plates, they don't always recall where they're at with a particular, where they are in the process. And so I think you just need to be cognizant of where you are with particular employers. And that's why good records of who who have you spoken to, what stage are you at. And I think it goes back again to negotiations and strategies, like you said, if it's just maybe some little tweaks, that would it be possible? Would you consider? You can always start out with that kind of language, because they may want you at this point, and maybe that's just a small detail. You don't want to make it a big thing, and it may not be a big thing, because as we see, and as you shared, these numbers are going back up in Illinois, where we were doing pretty well. And again, these things are very fluid right now. So I appreciate that insight. So there's a couple more questions. Pam is asking, is there an industry or job sector that is hiring? What job skills are most sought right now?
We are finding, well, the most obvious one is the healthcare industry. That was popping before the pandemic. There's always a need for people in that industry. We're still seeing that companies are looking for, well, now, they're looking for everyone from medical records people to, we don't do anything with hospitals and first touch people, nurses and things like that. So I don't know those numbers, but we do work with companies that provide in-home caregivers and in-home help, not nurses. But those companies are looking for people, they are always looking for caregivers, but now they're looking for people who can train them, who can manage them, who can retain them, because they, like any other company, know it's much more difficult to replace people, and it's much more costly. It's more effective if you can retain the individuals you have. So that industry is still hiring, and I don't see that slowing down. IT, obviously, IT is hot because every company. I mean, I tried to buy an external camera. You can't even find them, and if you do, they're hundreds of dollars, because this market has just become a very technological market. So IT is very strong. Companies are looking to be able to set up home offices for their employees, for themselves, to be able to perhaps do more remote work at home. They're also looking to set up different types of technology within their offices, so that people working from outside don't have as much trouble, or don't have any problems connecting and working. We had some issues trying to connect from home. We couldn't always get in. We couldn't always check things. It was really kind of a nightmare, and taught me a lesson that I need to invest in some better technology, because, sincerely, if this number keeps going up, Governor Pritzker might start shutting things down again, and we'd all be working from home. And so that's why technology is a great industry. Beyond that, those are the two that seem to be popping. And then we're always getting inquiries about strong customer service people. Customer service in the area of call centers, because now companies are needing people, companies, they're placing orders. They're doing that more online and more not online, but just in phone time. So a lot of companies, different industries, I'm sorry, I can't nail one down, but we've had the automobile or auto parts industry. We've had insurance. A lot of insurance companies are looking for people to work with claims, to be in their customer service department. So I hope that helps.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then this is just a nice comment. Thank you, Louisa. These are truly great points of view from the inside, the mind of the employer, many moving parts, both inside and outside of the organization.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
And then thank you for facilitating, Jennifer and Louisa, for the presentation. Would it be appropriate to ask the manager / HR, what procedures has the company put in place to address COVID? Who should provide this info? Is it HR?
It depends who you're dealing with. I would say if HR is handling the job search, that's exactly the person that you would ask. When we're handling the job search for someone, those are questions we're asking the employer. So those are things that we can share with the applicants so that they know what they can expect and what's expected of them. It's just amazing. But some people ask, well, should I wear a mask when I go for my interview? You should wear a mask regardless of what you're doing at all times if you're going to be near anyone. But people still ask those questions. So it's not inappropriate to talk to HR, and that should be a good talking point.
That's great. Okay, thank you. And Frank asks, how do you address safety concerns with a recruiter email without alienating them? I'm not sure exactly what he means by safety concerns, whether it's on site at the employer or, general things that we've talked about today. But I don't know if that's the stage. What are your thoughts, Louisa?
Well, if you want to discuss that with the recruiter, I believe that if a recruiter is offended or turned off by that question, I don't think they're the right recruiter. Everyone needs to be concerned about their own personal safety and the safety of others around them. So if that is Frank's question, once you're talking with the recruiter, you can ask, you can ask the recruiter when you are taking orders or working with a client, do you ask what their safety protocols are? And if the recruiter says, well, that's none of my business, well, I'm here to tell you it is a recruiter's business. You need to know that you're not sending, at least, I need to know we're not sending people into a company that has no concern for them. So I hope that answers the question. If it's something beyond that, I didn't understand the question correctly.
Okay, Frank, if you do have any specific follow-ups, you can certainly enter them in the Q&A. All right, and then I've got a couple more here. Linda asks, if you have submitted an application via an ATS, applicant tracking system, and the status is that you are being considered, but you have not heard from HR, should you withdraw the application and submit for a different position within the same company? Well, what do you think, Louisa?
I wouldn't withdraw. Depending on the ATS the company is using, they could have a timeline during which it is being considered, legitimately being considered. They may have a timeline on how long they're going to be looking and having an order open, and so you're being considered during that time frame, and then everything is decided after a certain point in time. I think to withdraw your application and apply for another position would make them wonder what is it that you want. Were you sincere about applying for the first position, or is this position, the second one you apply for, is that really in your wheelhouse and that's what you want to do? So I think that would send a message that you don't want to send to the employer.
I agree, and I think it depends on the types of different positions that you're applying for. And some organizations, I know with DuPage County, which hires across many departments, not only Workforce Development Division, but you can apply for up to 6 jobs in their system. You know, it's not going to let you apply for that 7th position. And again, is that something where they're similar positions? Are they different positions? I guess I would just wonder what
Right.
the big
Well,
one is
if
too.
if there's similar positions, and if there is that caveat that you can apply for multiple, then if this is something, you know, truly that fits, then I don't think that's an issue. But if it's in those instances where a company allows more than one application at the same time, you would not want to withdraw one just because you haven't heard, because again, they're allowing, you know, more than one, and that's going to go through their process and their vetting before they start getting back to people. If it's just what I took to mean when I answered earlier, if it's one company that has not given that caveat, and someone, you know, you apply for one position and you don't hear, and I know how maddening that is, because you think to yourself, you know, you say I'm pending, or I'm being considered. Well, how long does it take to consider me? And that's a question that, you know, a lot of times no one can answer. Getting back to people who keep putting jobs on hold because something has happened. We don't know what's happened within their office. Perhaps someone tested positive. Perhaps there's been a new rule passed down from on high. So I think to withdraw it if it hasn't been answered in your time frame, and apply for something else, unless it is very, very similar, perhaps the same job in a different division, I wouldn't pull the first one. But Jennifer, your point is well taken. If the employer has that caveat, then yes, put in as many as you feel you can qualify to handle.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then Martin asks this question: in your opinion, once a vaccine is available, how fast will employers increase or open their hiring?
Oh, golly. Oh, Martin, you and I need to have the same crystal ball. I'm hearing things that from the point that there is a vaccine, it could take 3 to 6 months for enough people to receive the vaccine to develop what they're calling that herd immunity, so that even if not everyone in the world has received it, there are enough people that can protect those in their bubble or in their circle, you know, that have not received it yet. So I don't know. That's what I've heard. It takes 3 to 6 months to get enough people to that safe point. I would think, I mean, the employer's mind sometimes, I think now they've been schooled in what's happened. But that one company I was talking about, as soon as Governor Pritzker said, okay, non-essential businesses can open on this day, they wanted interviews the week before. They wanted to hire, they wanted to bring people in, and then they had to stop, and they realized, because I asked them, are you going to interview online, Skype, in person? You know, was the second interview in person? Oh, they had to stop and think. They had not put that in place because their mindset was, oh, if we see a resume we like, we bring them in. Well, that wasn't happening. And then this is the same company that when they did see someone they liked, they made them the offer, but then they had to delay the offer because their office was not up to code, if you want to call it now, code. They had desks that were too close together. They had traffic patterns that were crossing each other. They didn't have anything in place because all they were thinking about is, yes, we're back. But
there's more to it than that. Yes.
Yes. And those same companies now realize there's more to it than that. So I don't think you're going to have any employers gearing up so quickly until there's a little bit more of a safety assurance that enough people are vaccinated, that it's safer, and we can start to get back to a little bit of what life was before this.
Whatever that was, I don't remember.
Yes, I have to say, in full disclosure, if you're looking at a picture of me, my hair is what they call a COVID color now. It's the gray has grown out and it's much longer. So I don't look anything like that picture that's up there. The new normal.
Well, you look marvelous. All right. Now, John, again, was just reiterating about the interviewing and negotiating, what to say and when to say it. And again, that's what we're here to help you with. If you're part of our program, we have lots of workshops for clients that we talk about all these specific details, the ATS system, so I'm putting a little plug in here. And normally when we were in the office, we would do these live workshops. We had boot camps, a lot of topics for job seekers that we covered all those specific topics. So again, I encourage you to apply, and I'll reiterate that at the end of our talk today.
And Jennifer, if anyone wants to ask me a question afterwards, my email address is very easy. They can just contact me at info@thehiresolution.net, and maybe you can
Sure.
get that to them. But
Sure.
that is a general email that comes directly to me, and I'm happy to try to answer any questions if I have the answers or if I can get them. As I mentioned, I reached out to some people that I know that study this. That's their whole world and their job, especially SHRM. So I can try to get answers for you if I can find those. But you have a marvelous, brilliant resource in Jennifer and WorkNet DuPage. So she's probably the one that can get those answers for you as well. But if there's something specific about employment agencies and how they work, and recruiters and things like that, I'm happy to answer those questions.
Well, that's very generous of you. Thank you, Louisa, and thank you for the kind words. We have a couple other questions in the chat that I'll go over to. I was shocked. This is Phil. I was shocked after using my contacts at companies to recommend me. HR is only sending emails back to me, not even a conversation. How do you get around that? I don't know exactly what the question is there, Phil, but maybe if you could put some more detail in a question in the Q&A section, that would be helpful.
Right, I'm not sure.
Then Victoria asks, what about flexibility in terms of salary? Would I have to accept a salary that is lower than what I was making at my previous job before the pandemic? I'm already looking at jobs that pay the same as what I was making 9 years ago, but would I have to go lower? And I don't know what her background is or what she's looking for, so I can't give you that detail, but any ideas on that, Louisa?
Again, that's something that is unclear. It's uncertain. People are looking at taking a lower salary, and it's unfortunate, but companies are not able, some companies, not all companies, but some companies are not able to bring people in at higher salaries, the salaries that they might have been able to do just 6 months ago. And that's because they've lost revenue, they may have lost clients, they've had issues that they have to work through. And again, as I said, I don't know how many slides ago, if they can't make more money, they have to spend less money. And one way to do that is to lower starting salaries. Now, sometimes if someone takes a lower starting salary, but the company has an excellent benefit plan, health insurance and other benefits, that could be not a total trade-off, but it could work a little bit better for someone who has to take that cut in pay. If what we're seeing, though, companies are looking more and more to that part-time person, which could exclude them from benefits. They're looking for maybe 2 part-time people to get the job done. They might be sacrificing a little bit of productivity because, as I mentioned, sometimes the 2 part-time people aren't spot on. They're not exactly in sync, and that could slow down an order, or I don't think it would, who knows, it could lose an account. But they're willing to take that risk because it's not a hard and fast dollar amount. I don't know, Victoria, if that answers your question. I sincerely hope you don't have to go below what you were making, 9 years ago. But it's just a question of sometimes there could be something that you can get from the employer that would make it a little bit more easy to swallow. Perhaps, again, maybe remote time, if that's something that's important to you or could work to your benefit. Again, no crystal ball.
Well, and I just have to bring everyone back to maybe February where we were live in person doing workshops, and I was letting people know that, the pendulum always swings with employers and pay, and we were getting to the point where there was such a low unemployment rate across the board, especially in Illinois. I think in DuPage County it was under 3%, 4%. I mean, that's historically a very low number. And then, head snap to March, your head just went around on its axis because, right away, people were getting laid off. I mean, it was just a really fast, that was the fastest, we've ever seen, obviously. But just a month ago, I was telling people, hey, it's a great job market. You can ask for whatever you want. But again, you have to adapt to what's going on. And I think your point is good, Louisa. Look at what are the other tangibles that you can possibly negotiate. Maybe you can negotiate more vacation time, more PTO days, whatever it might be, that's important to you right now. And that's, again, something you need to consider. What's important to you right now? Maybe 6 months ago, there were other things that were more important to you. But since everything's changed for you too, you have to reevaluate that.
Good point. And some of the other things that you might ask for would be a better match on a 401k. It doesn't have to be something that will be in place forever. And that's the other thing. What terms you come up with or agree upon with a new employer, it's not a bad conversation to have in letting them know that you understand that this is how it needs to be right now, and you're asking, can you get more paid vacation? Can you get, or sometimes it's not even a question of paid vacation. You want your paid vacation, but you also want the flexibility to have some time off because of other things that you're involved in, or, as I said, a higher match. It's very fluid. I know I keep using that, but it's not anything that anyone can pinpoint. So the idea of supply and demand, what Jennifer mentioned, is exactly right. When we had companies that were, they were calling us or emailing us and saying, have you found anyone? Have you, do you have anyone that fits, or have you seen anyone? They were asking us if we had any applicants to show them. And that certainly, isn't the case now. Just as before, after that Great Recession, we have many, many more applicants than we have companies that are searching at this point. I think I don't know who asked about when we thought they'd start opening up after a vaccine, but to that point, that's really, I think, what's going to have to happen for companies to open their doors as wide as they were open before. They need to know who's coming back, who's going to stay. People might come back to their jobs, and after a few weeks, they're just too nervous. They don't like the fact that, somebody didn't put their mask on when they walked back, past their desk. They didn't like the fact that 3 people were over at the coffee machine when there should only be 1 person, and management doesn't seem to be doing anything about it. There is that side of the equation too. So until we find our footing, until everyone feels on solid ground, it's just not a certain there's nothing certain about it. I could keep saying that. It's just
I'm
how it is.
certain that there's nothing certain. How about that?
There
Yes,
you go.
Here's
Yes.
your tagline right there.
Yes, I'm certain that there's nothing certain.
So Lynn asks a question here. We've got a couple more. My company restructured at the end of 2019. COVID-19 has really thrown a curveball to job search. I'm still in transition, but not from the lack of searching for my next opportunity. Should I hold out for a full-time position or just take a temporary position to get back working? You know, that's, I think, a personal choice. But what do you say, Louisa, about that?
It is a personal choice. It depends what you're comfortable doing and what your particular situation is. If you can be in well, right now you're not getting benefits. Right now you're not earning a paycheck. If you take temporary positions, it shows that you are interested in working, and it also puts some money in your pocket. It's not going to do anything for benefits, but it is a personal question or a personal decision. When we see people who take temporary positions after working for a company for a number of years, while they're looking for a new position, it's actually a great selling point when we present them to the client that is looking for a temp. What is not as desirable is someone who keeps working temp longer than the disaster or crisis. Individuals who kept working temp after the recession for several years, clients would look at their resumes and say, well, why did they work temp for all this time? Didn't anybody want to hire them? But in the immediate after effect of the recession, people who worked temp for a short time and then found employment, it was not a black mark against them, so to speak. Because I understand that some people feel if they work temp, it's something, I don't know, that they feel that it's less than a real job. It goes against them, and it doesn't, depending on how long and when it happens. So,
Right, and I think even back in 2008, 9, 10, you know, the gaps, and also, like you're saying, the employment, if you're working a temp job, I mean, you have to feed and clothe your family, provide shelter. I mean, you know what's best for your situation.
exactly.
And nobody should be judging anyone on that on your resume. And there's ways to put that on your resume that may look a little better. And again, that's where we can help with formatting the resume, making sure you're taking those good skills. And I'll share a quick story with one of my clients. She's in writing and publishing. She's an editor, and she was laid off. She started connecting with her network. She got a job contract with a firm that she was very interested in because she knew someone from her past coworker, something like that, who had moved to this company. But now she's in the running for a position because she had that contract work experience and she was able to showcase what she could do for them. They're already looking at her as a known entity.
Right.
So
Oh,
I
Jennifer,
think,
that happens a lot.
yeah,
We'll send people out on temp assignments, and it's kind of one of those, well, we need someone for 4, 5, 6 weeks. We're not quite sure. And as we get close to the end of it, they'll say, well, you know, could we keep them a little bit longer? And then in some cases, they'll call and say, we'd like to hire them. So temp work is not a bad way to get your foot in the door and to show them, for one thing, if they're not in the process of interviewing for a permanent position, but they feel they just need someone temp, you have no other competition. You are on the inside track. You're there every day. They're seeing you. You're doing your work. You're interacting with them. It's an opportunity that really has benefit to it. And so I wouldn't shy away from it. The point that I was trying to make is that you have to be aware of how some employers view someone who has temp after temp after temp assignment. But as Jennifer mentioned, there are ways to make that look very appealing on your resume by talking about the skills and the productivity that you had in those positions, but not necessarily marking them as this was 3 months, this was 5 weeks, this was that. And Jennifer knows how to put all that together for you in a very marketable fashion.
Yes, I do. I'm a resume nerd and I can help you.
That's a wizard. You're a resume wizard.
Well, and it's easy because if it's somebody else's resume, it's not my resume. When it's your resume, you're too close to it, and you do have to highlight functional skills, and sometimes it's more of a hybrid resume, which again, you can come to our workshops if you're interested in learning more. We encourage you to apply so you can get it, all that good info that will help you in your job search. So let's move on to another couple questions here. There's one that was asking about, is there any way to find out, this is Lena, whether work from home jobs on sites are genuine? I don't know if you have any expertise in that, Louisa, but that's one of the questions.
I think that you have to be very careful. My coworker is telling me that you want to Google those companies and you want to see if there are any complaints about them. You want to check them out before you take that next step with them. It's, you want to know if they've offered this before, if people are, if there are any complaints about how they were treated, that it was a bait and switch or whatever it might be.
Right. No, I really want you all to be very careful out there. As Louisa mentioned, just research, know who you're speaking with, especially if they start asking for your private personal information, social security number, birthday, your bank account number. No, you could be talking to anybody. And this is why they don't grab purses anymore on the street, because they can just go online. It's very simple. They can find enough people to sort through by just placing some nefarious website out there. I've done for the several years work, job scam, job seeker type focused presentation. There's a lot of scams out there in general because of the pandemic. Yes. And the census and, just our environment right now. People are mistrusting a lot of information. So sometimes you're even questioning people that are legitimate, which is okay. They're just going to have to deal with that. But I would just be very leery and there's job scam trackers. And there is a presentation that I did, I think it was in May, but if you go on the webinars recordings for our website, which we highlighted earlier and I'll bring up again, you can scroll down and I believe there's a job scams presentation that I did and it will give you some more insights, but don't take the bait. That's what I would say. But they know you're vulnerable, so that's why they're doing that. So let's switch gears here. This question asks, Lucille asks, I am IT. There are a lot of IT recruiters fishing for talent out there. How do I know which ones actually have positions?
Wow. That's a little bit more difficult because if you go to their website, or are you saying IT recruiters? You want to know which recruiters actually have the IT orders? Well, I think that was that the question? Okay.
Because there are a lot of telemarketers and I get that.
Yes. Again, if you can identify the recruiter, the company, which you should be able to, I think if you look at the company, right. I'm getting a little caveat here from my sidebar from my coworker here. First of all, to see if you can check them out, the company that they're doing the recruiting, but also as my sidekick Janet just mentioned, be aware of probably offshore recruiters. You want to there's a little bit more leery of them because they're more difficult to to follow up with, to track down if anything goes wrong. It's easier for them to, right. Yes. Oh, you didn't hear that, but you said they just make money making robocalls, and they are trolling to find applicants not necessarily for any position they really have, but they make money if they can connect someone to, I mean, I get those emails all the time. They're offshore recruiters, and they're going to recruit for my company. So whatever job listing I give them, they're going to go find those people for me. That isn't the kind of work that we do, and that's probably not the connection that you want to make either.
Right. I think you just need to know there's a, Illinois Search Association. There's referrals from other IT, coworkers, colleagues, networks, looking them up, as Louisa said, verifying who you're speaking to. And, ask them some questions. Ask a headhunter, has a blog, and he's a recruiter, and he's got a lot of things to say. He's very opinionated, which I like about him. But he talks about, you can interview the recruiters, and typically, they want all your information, but you don't even know if they have, the position. Like Louisa said, they're just kind of churning through names and contacts, and they don't really have any control over presenting you to a potential employer.
Right. They don't have the contact with the employer. They're just streaming for dollars, dialing for dollars, they used to call it. Don't hesitate in asking a recruiter questions. That blog that gentleman writes is absolutely right. And if someone has difficulty or refuses to be transparent with you, then you know that isn't the person you want to deal with.
Exactly.
So, I mean, if someone were to ask us, we do occasionally work with one IT company that looks for a tech. Every couple of years they grow and they need another, help desk person, break fix person, someone who can, explain to a client what's wrong and what needs to be done. But we're not an IT specialist. He works with us because he likes working with us. But if someone were to ask me, do you get a lot of IT positions? I would have to say, no, we don't. We get one maybe every 2 years, and it's the same company. And as long as they grow, we have an order with them probably every 18 months to 2 years. So it's not wrong to ask what their specialty is. We are in the area of accounting, customer service, marketing, office support personnel. We wouldn't work with engineers because we don't have that reach into those areas. So I'll definitely ask what their perspective or what their specialty is. And even if they are IT recruiters, that is a big umbrella. So ask specifically what they specialize in, and it might not be what you're looking for.
That's a good point, Louisa. All right, and then we've got a couple other, I'm gonna have to dismiss a few of those because I don't know what they're referring to. Okay. What are the gold mine jobs at this time that has the ability to hire in these times, or sector that is in need at this time? From Shakita. I think we kind of discussed this earlier.
I would say it's the healthcare industry. They actually one of our recruiters left us right before the pandemic because she was moving into the city, and she took a position with a recruiting company that recruited nurses. And in the first month that she was there, she was getting a little discouraged, and then the pandemic hit. And she has been making 15 placements a month, placing nurses throughout the country.
Wow.
So that is, again, healthcare is, that's hot right now. That's all I can say. And again,
Yeah.
IT. Yeah.
It's always shifting, and it can change on a dime. That's what we've learned. And
Absolutely can. I mean, a couple of years ago, accounting, when they changed the all of the IRS rules and regs, when they added pages and pages of new ruling, a lot of accountants, a lot of CPAs who, were probably in their late 50s, early 60s, maybe older, just decided, what, I'm not going to learn all of this. I am getting out of this. Many people left accounting because of all of the new rules. So for a while, I'd say probably about 2 years ago, we had more accounting orders, looking for people who did tax returns, looking for people who were CPAs. We had more orders than we could that we could really handle because of how many they needed, and some of their locations. Some of them were a little bit far out of our reach again, but it does shift. Now, I don't even know the last time we had an accounting position. As far as tax people, oh, okay, Janet's telling me last August, so a year ago. But
Right, and it's going to shift and change. And again, with, and there are industries that are coming out of this pandemic that we never had thought of. I just heard on LinkedIn that these occupancy space evaluators, people that go in and maybe work for architects or are hired by companies to help figure out the internal space. And this goes back to what you were saying in your presentation, Louisa, those are jobs that never really probably existed before. So again, you have to be on top of the current trends in the news and what, who knew that people were going to buy all kinds of wading pools and put in ground pools and above ground pools. Well, they can't go to the beach. They can't do this. Of course, they're starting to ride bicycles. So guess what? Bicycle shops are busy, but that may be that there's supply chain for the bicycles. They were on back order. Maybe they're back all the accessories. I mean, you have to be nimble enough. And if you're open to different industries, you have to start thinking about, well, where could I put my skills and use them, even if it's a biking shop, but I really, have IT skills, maybe there's a headquarters or a regional office or something that you could identify as maybe some help that they need. There could be all kinds of opportunities. Sometimes you just have to target the companies that you're interested in and start to network with those people rather than waiting for the passive job seeker typical reaction, which is, I'm going to wait until I see a job online. No, that's the slowest way to get a job. So we always encourage you, and we've talked about this in all of our workshops, go around the barriers, which is basically the ATS system. Go direct if you can to any contacts within the company. If there's anyone advocating for you on your behalf, you have a much better chance of at least getting your resume looked at by a human. If it's just the robots and you get weeded out because of the keywords, well, that's part of their process if they've got 700 people applying for that one position.
Jennifer, you brought up a great point about some of these emerging industries that we never thought of, like the office analyzer. Look at the, maybe that isn't something that you want to do, but look at the ancillary businesses that they would touch. Look at office furniture. I mean, I was just thinking about that. If they come in and say, you need to have, different kinds of desks, or you need to have protective shields, or you need to have, something else, that the office furniture industry might have a boost. The IT was a great point. Anything that is becoming a new industry, they're going to be using IT. They need to, because that's part of why they've become a new industry. So Jennifer, that's a great point to look at what's trending now, but also keep in mind what's trending now. Another point that Jennifer made, all the bicycles that are in back order and all the parts, once they come in, that demand will be met. So you want to look at an industry that maybe you can see it has value to keep moving forward, rather than an industry that's going to pop for the moment, and then once the demand is met, they pretty much are going to, fall back into a very complacent role. It's sort of like writers who try to write for the trend. Vampires are hot, so you're going to write a vampire story, but by the time you write it and it gets published, vampires aren't hot anymore. Then they're on to zombies or something. So you have to be aware of what moving forward means to that company. Will they always be needed? So, and that's just research, just looking to see, does it make sense that this new emerging industry will be able to go forward, or is it just here to put a Band-Aid on something and then it'll be done? I hope that makes sense.
Yes, thank you for your comments. So one question is really a question about what hasn't been asked. What would give us an edge in the interviewing and hiring process? Is there anything that you could recommend from Candida?
What would give you an edge in the hiring and or interviewing and hiring process? I think we've touched on it a little bit. I think it would be the ability to express flexibility. Flexibility in work hours, flexibility in pay, flexibility in availability. I think that could be the key at this point in time to be as open to change, to be able to adapt to something that perhaps you didn't think you would want or could accommodate. I really think that's the key, is to try to let them know, try to get that point across. And we talked a little bit about, how to do that.
Yes. All right, so we're coming up on 10:30, and I just wanted to see if there's any other burning questions here that are things we haven't covered yet. I think we covered most everything here. I think we've gotten a lot of interesting insights today, and I really appreciate Louisa being here. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen right now so we can finish out with some upcoming events. So let me go ahead and I'll pop on the screen here.
Jennifer, thank you for inviting me, and I hope this has been helpful. And again, please, any questions, info@thehiresolution.net. I'm available to answer those.
That's great. I did type it in the chat, and so again, it's
Hiresolution.net.
.net. Okay, and so let me go ahead and get into my slides here. So again, I mentioned earlier, but these recordings are always posted at our website, worknetdupage.org. And we've got registration there as well. We've got all the August topics coming up. So you may want to go ahead. We have been selling out, and we have fabulous speakers, as you saw today with Louisa. Again, thank you so much, Louisa, for sharing all your insights, because it was very helpful. It was very clear. What we need to do is just kind of take it day by day. I think the Serenity Prayer, I thought of that the other day, and I think that might be something we all want to read at least daily.
Absolutely. You got to stay sane.
Yes, because we can't control some of this. And unfortunately, we don't know how long this is going to be there. Uncertainty, humans do not like uncertainty. Their minds, it kind of makes us freak out. So we've got, some steps there are action steps you can take. And one of them would be take our quick survey. We're going to send it out with the recording and the information that you heard about today if you wanted to replay anything. But like I said earlier, we really want your feedback. We want topics, insights that you're looking for, and that will help us inform on our future Job Club presenters and also the topics. So thank you for sharing in advance. Today, if you are one of our job seeker clients, you want to go ahead and let your counselor know that you were here today, and the code for today is HURRY WAIT. HURRY, HURRY, WAIT, HURRY WAIT. And what we can do then is mark you down that you attended, and that is part of the job search seeker responsibilities to attend workshops and events, because we know that the people that do actively participate, even though we're doing it remotely, we find that those people are finding jobs. I've had several job seekers since March. Some of them had that same situation where the offer was rescinded, but it was just the timing of it, unfortunately, because there was so much unknown. One of the gentlemen, it was all, but I want to congratulate them all because they made it through that process. And if there wasn't a pandemic, they would be working. So I know that's not always the greatest, caveat to say, wow, I did make it through the gauntlet, but you did make it through, so you should give yourself a pat on the back. There was no control by, you on this pandemic, what was going to happen. So unfortunately, they did continue to seek other positions, but they're getting interviews, and I think you just have to stay positive. And that's why we want to know when you get a job, because we want to share that with other people. We want to help you understand who's getting jobs, how did they do it, what services did they partake, from our office, what was something that really helped them. And one of the main things is we want to keep this program going. And if we don't ever tell the government that we are actually, working with people and that they're having good outcomes, 80% of the people that we work with are finding jobs. So we tell that to Congress. They let us know that we're going to be funded again for the next year. And we want to keep that conversation going. So let us know, let your counselor know if you do land. We'd appreciate it. And we want to share in your success. That makes our day when we hear that somebody found a job. Believe me, we ring bells, we get very excited. So let me just go quickly through the next few weeks. In August, we've got public, open to the public. You can sign up right now for any of these. They're all on the website. And again, like I said, they do sell out. So we do have a waiting list beyond the 100 seats that we have, but often if you can't make it, please cancel your registration, because we do have a waiting list and we don't want to close this off for anybody that really can't attend. So next time, next week, August 7th, Embracing the Winds of Change, Adjust Your Sails. August 14th, I'll be speaking about digital portfolios and professional development and how you can use that to your advantage by posting and maybe having some online highlights of your skills, your abilities, your accomplishments, and what formats you can put those into. On August 21st, Sarah Breithaupt from Lisle Township will be here to talk about the mindful job search. And the last in-person job club we had was on March 13th. It was a Friday the 13th. And Sarah presented this information. It was very helpful because we had a lot of unknowns, and the week following we all were in lockdown. So I think it's great to revisit this. I think you'll enjoy her techniques, and they are really easy to do. I think she describes it very well. So I really recommend you all attend on August 21st to hear her, Sarah Breithaupt from Lisle Township. And then August 28th, branding for the job search, the Apple Way. So we'll talk more about that. And again, go to our website. You can register right now. If you have any questions at all that weren't answered, or if you have a specific comment or anything you need to share, our manager, Jim, would love to hear from you. His email is jfergle, JFERGLE @worknetdupage.org, and he would be happy to respond to you. So I'm putting that up there. I don't think we have anything else. Louisa, again, thank you so much for sharing today. It was very helpful, good information. I think job seekers sometimes
Jennifer,
get very, thank you.
Sorry, it was my pleasure. I just want to say one thing. Whoever does email me, I did see at the bottom that they did correct the email. Please put WorkNet in the subject line so I know where you're coming from.
Oh yes, that's a great idea.
Great, thank you.
And it's info@thehiresolution.net.
Correct.
So many job seekers are finding that they're, anxious about the job search process. It normally is sometimes taking a long time. I know it took me 2 months to get hired in this job because of background checks, interviews. It just was a long process. And that was during normal times before COVID. So I know that it can take quite a while anyway, and this is just adding layers to it. So we really appreciate the insights and information you shared today, Louisa. And I look forward to hearing from you again soon. And letting us know maybe when you have a new book coming out. I don't know what you're working on, but we'll have to chat about that.
We will. I'd love to have coffee someday. That would be
Okay.
wonderful. All right.
Well,
Thank you so
thanks,
much.
everybody. I'm going to stop the recording right now, and I hope you have a fabulous rest of your day and a great weekend, and everybody be well, stay safe. Thank you all.